Listen, a man walks away from a woman he loved. He thinks he's done everything right. Cut the contact, stepped back, disappeared from her world. And he tells himself, now she'll feel it. Now she'll miss me. But what he doesn't see is the thin thread still tied to his heart, a thread she can feel, even from miles away. See, women have a strange kind of intuition. They don't need your messages, they don't need your calls. They can sense your attachment through the silence itself. And if you walk away physically, yet emotionally you're still kneeling at the door she closed, she won't feel your absence. She'll feel your loyalty. And loyalty without effort, without respect, without commitment, that's not something she cherishes. That's something she comes to expect, something she gets used to, something she stops valuing. So here's where your story shifts. Because everything you think walking away does for you, it doesn't. Not until you change something much deeper. And that's what I'm going to do for you today. Chapter by chapter, step by step. I'm going to take you inside the part men never talk about. The part that actually creates regret. The part that makes a woman look back one day and whisper, I didn't think he'd ever become that version of himself. Not through games, not through silence alone, not through disappearing and hoping she notices, but through a transformation she never believed you were capable of. So sit with me for a moment, because once you understand the first shift, the one I'm about to show you, you'll never look at walking away the same way again. This isn't the end of the story. This is where it finally begins. Point 1. The moment you stop explaining yourself. Let me take you into the moment everything changes. Because it never happens the way men expect. It doesn't start with a breakup. It doesn't start with a fight. It doesn't even start with a silence. It starts with a look, a moment, a small shift inside you that she doesn't notice at first, but you feel it, like a door quietly closing from the inside. Maybe you're sitting across from her while she's frustrated over something you didn't do. Maybe she's twisting your words again, opening old wounds, or demanding an explanation for a feeling she created. And you're tired. Not loud tired, not angry tired, just soul tired. For the first time, the words don't rush to your tongue. Your chest doesn't tighten the way it usually does. Your mind doesn't start writing the long message you've written 100 times before. You just feel this calm voice inside you saying, why am I still explaining myself to someone who never listens? That's the moment. That's the beginning of the shift. Not a dramatic explosion, not a door slamming, just a man finally realizing that communication means nothing when it's always one-sided. And the funny thing? She doesn't notice it instantly. At first, she thinks you're just being quiet. She thinks you're deciding your words. She thinks you're processing. She still believes you're going to do what you've always done, break yourself open to make her feel understood. But this time, you don't. You don't defend yourself. You don't rewrite the story. You don't fix the narrative she broke. You simply sit there, not cold, not angry, just done. And this calm disengagement, this quiet refusal to carry the emotional weight of two people, it hits her deeper than any argument ever could. Because she was used to the man who tried, the man who cared enough to clarify every misunderstanding, the man who kept the relationship alive with paragraphs, apologies, and explanations. In her mind, you were the emotional firefighter. She lit the match, you put out the flames. But when you stop rushing in, when you stop rescuing, when you stop explaining yourself just to maintain peace, she feels something she never expected. Responsibility. Responsibility for the words she used like weapons. Responsibility for the accusations she threw without thinking. Responsibility for the times you begged to be heard.
And she rolled her eyes instead of listening. And for the first time, your silence doesn't feel like a game to her. It feels like a mirror. A mirror showing who she became while you were busy trying to hold everything together. That's when her ego gets its first bruise. Not because you yelled, not because you left, but because she finally sees what your explanations were hiding. You weren't overreacting, you were overcompensating. She wasn't confused, she wasn't misunderstood, she simply wasn't willing to hear the truth because she knew it required accountability. And now she has no explanation from you to hide behind. No long text to twist. No emotional reassurance to lean on. She only has her actions and the silence that reflects them back at her. And here's the part most men never realize. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment she starts explaining you to herself. Why isn't he fighting anymore? Why doesn't he care what I think? Why does his silence feel different this time? Did I push him too far? Did I finally see my behavior for what it was? That's when the confusion starts. That's when the regret begins. That's when she realizes something deeper than loss. She didn't just lose a man. She lost the man who tried to love her through everything. And that, my friend, is the exact moment her story changes, and yours finally begins.
Point 2. When you no longer react to her energy. Let me take you into another moment. A moment just as powerful as stopping your explanations, but quieter and far more dangerous to her ego. It happens on a day that feels ordinary. Maybe she posts something online, a quote, a picture, a song meant to make you feel something. Maybe she gives you that short, dry reply. Maybe she's distant, cold, or acting unpredictable again. In the past, this would have hit you like a punch to the chest. You'd start spiraling. What does she mean by this? Is she upset? Did I do something wrong? You would analyze every word, every emoji, every science, because her energy controlled your emotional weather. If she was warm, you felt safe. If she was cold, your whole day collapsed. If she pulled away, you chased. If she came closer, you softened. Without realizing it, your heart started beating to the rhythm of her moods. But one day, a day you don't even see coming, you stop reacting. Not because you don't care, not because you want to punish her, but because you finally understand something crucial. Her energy is not your responsibility. Her mood is not your mission. Her chaos is not your job to control. And the shift is subtle. She sends a dry message, and instead of panicking, you simply put your phone down. She posts something provocative, and instead of feeling stabbed, you keep scrolling calmly. She gives attitude, and instead of matching it, you breathe and continue your day. It feels strange at first, almost like breaking a habit you didn't realize you had. But that calm, that emotional control, that ability to stay centered, it's the moment your story starts writing itself differently. Because women expect men to respond to their energy. They expect your emotions to move when theirs do. They expect you to feel unbalanced when they pull away. For many women, a man's reaction is the confirmation of his attachment. His attention is the proof of his value for her. But now, your silence is not anxious, it's peaceful. Your calm is not passive, it's powerful. Your lack of reaction is not detachment, it's evolution. And she feels that shift instantly. At first, she tests it. Small things, little hooks, a story post meant to poke you, a delayed reply to see if you'll double text, a subtle change in tone to see if you react. But you don't. Not because you're ignoring her, but because you're no longer addicted to her energy. You're not emotionally starving anymore. You're not waiting for her validation. You're not feeding off her attention. You started feeding yourself.
And here's the part she never saw coming. When a man stops reacting, a woman starts reflecting. Suddenly, she's the one wondering, why didn't that bother him? Is he talking to someone else? Is he losing interest? Why doesn't he fight back anymore? Why does he seem so different? That confusion, that quiet panic, that fear of losing emotional influence, it cracks her ego more than any no-contact rule ever could. Because she didn't just lose your reactions, she lost the emotional control she once had over you. A man who reacts is predictable. A man who reacts is manageable. A man who reacts is emotionally invested. But a man who stays centered, a man who doesn't move when she moves, he's not predictable anymore. He's not manageable anymore. He's not emotionally dependent anymore. And that's when she realizes something deeper. You're not breaking. You're breaking free. This is where the shift becomes real. This is where your power begins returning to you. This is where she starts to feel the weight of losing a version of you she thought she controlled. Because the day you stop reacting to her energy is the day she starts reacting to yours. Point 3. When you finally outgrow the version of you she knew. There's a moment in every man's journey where he looks in the mirror and realizes he's not the same person she walked away from. But let me take you to where this shift really begins. It usually starts in the quiet, not in the gym, not with a new haircut, not when you suddenly change your wardrobe. It starts in your mind. One day, after all the chaos, the confusion, the overthinking, you wake up and something feels different. Your heart isn't as heavy. Your thoughts aren't as desperate. Your emotions feel calmer. It's almost like the old version of you, the one who begged, chased, explained, the one who held on even when it hurt, has finally taken its last breath. You don't even notice the change at first, but the people around you do. Your voice sounds clearer. Your eyes look steadier. Your presence feels stronger. Your decisions become sharper. And without trying, without performing, without forcing yourself to move on, you begin to outgrow the version of you she memorized. Because she did memorize you. Make no mistake about that. She had a picture in her mind. The soft-hearted man who loved deeply, the predictable man who always came back, the emotional man who broke down to prove his sincerity, the loyal man who accepted far less than he deserved. That version of you, she thought it was permanent. She built her confidence around it. Her control depended on it. Her ego rested comfortably on the idea that you would always be that man. But growth is a funny thing. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't announce its arrival. It just begins, quietly, steadily, like a sunrise. Maybe you start working on yourself, not to impress her, but because your spirit is rebuilding. Your body is changing. Your ambition wakes up again. Your confidence returns like a storm that was always meant to come back. You start dreaming bigger. You start walking differently. You start valuing your time, your peace, your mind. And without warning, she starts feeling the shift. Not through your posts, not through your words, not through any direct communication. She feels it through your absence. Because a man who is growing stops orbiting the woman who held him back. This is where the ego crack turns into a fracture. Because nothing rattles a woman's confidence like realizing the man she thought she outgrew has now outgrown her. She scrolls through your pictures and something feels off. Something about you looks unfamiliar. Your energy seems elevated. Your eyes carry a calm she can't read. Your lifestyle is moving forward without her fingerprints on it. She starts comparing the old you to the new you, and the uncomfortable truth hits her. She didn't leave a weak man, she just interrupted a strong man's evolution, and he evolved anyway. That realization stings, not because she wants you back, but because she never believed you'd rise higher than the version she knew. She thought she'd always be the one who had potential. She never imagined you becoming the one she couldn't reach anymore. And here's the most powerful part. When you outgrow the version of yourself she was familiar with, you don't just become a better man. You become a stranger she underestimated, a mystery, a question mark, a what if. And that's the moment her ego bends under the weight of reality. She didn't just lose you. She lost the version of you she'll never get access to again. This is the chapter she never saw coming. The chapter where your growth becomes the plot twist. The chapter where her regret quietly begins.
Point 4. When you stop trying to be chosen. There comes a moment in every man's healing journey where something inside him finally clicks, and it's a moment far more powerful than silence, than distance, than no contact. It's the moment he stops trying to be chosen. But let me take you into how that moment actually happens, because it's not loud, it's not angry, it's not dramatic. It begins with a realization, a painful one, but a liberating one. You are the only one trying to be enough, trying to prove your worth, trying to earn a place in someone's life who never offered you certainty. You remember the nights where you overanalyzed her tone, the texts you rewrote 5 times, the calls you waited for, the attention you begged for without ever saying the words out loud. It wasn't love driving you, it was fear. Fear of losing her, fear of being replaced, fear of not being picked. And she could sense that. Women can always sense when a man is seeking validation instead of connection. But then, something shifts. It doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly, quietly, like the tide rising without anyone noticing. You start valuing your peace more than her mixed signals. You start valuing your time more than her delays. You start valuing your self-respect more than her uncertain affection. And suddenly the idea of being chosen doesn't feel like a privilege anymore. It feels like a burden you've been carrying for far too long. This is the moment she never expected, because she was used to the version of you who competed for her attention, who tried to impress, who tried to keep her happy, who adjusted himself to fit into her life. But when you stop trying, when you pull your energy back from proving something and redirect it toward becoming something, that's when the story flips. You stop trying to be chosen and you start choosing. Choosing peace, choosing standards, choosing growth, choosing yourself. Your energy changes, your presence strengthens, your priorities shift, and she feels this change like a cold wind at the back of her neck. See, when a man tries too hard to be chosen, it gives a woman a kind of unconscious superiority, a feeling that she has options, a feeling that you're safe, a feeling that no matter how she acts, you'll always be waiting to be picked. But when you stop trying, that illusion shatters. Suddenly, she's the one watching your actions. She's the one second-guessing. She's the one wondering if she still matters. She's the one feeling uncertain. She starts thinking things like, why isn't he trying anymore? Did he give up? Has he changed? Did someone else enter his life? Why doesn't he look at me the same way anymore? The panic doesn't show at first. It begins quietly, like doubt. Then it grows into curiosity, then into anxiety, and finally into regret. Because here's the truth she never wanted to face. You were never supposed to chase her. She was supposed to appreciate you. And now you've stopped running. Now you've stopped reaching. Now you've stopped proving something that should have been obvious from the start. The tables don't turn when she loses you. The tables turn when you stop needing her validation. That's when the power returns to you. That's when clarity returns to you. That's when she realizes she didn't lose a man. She lost the version of him who would have done anything just to be chosen. And that version, he's not coming back. This chapter in your story marks the moment you move from trying to impress
to becoming unforgettable. Point 5. When your life starts moving faster than her expectations. Every woman creates a timeline in her mind after she pulls away. A quiet one, a hidden one, a timeline she never says out loud. She predicts how long you'll miss her, how long you'll wait, how long you'll stay emotionally stuck, how slowly you'll recover. She expects your healing to be slow, your confidence to be shaky, your progress to be gradual, your heart to stay tethered to her memory. She counts on that. But here's where everything changes. When your life begins to move faster than she ever imagined. Not because you're trying to impress her, not because you're pretending to be okay, not because you want her to see your progress. It's because something inside you finally wakes up. Maybe it starts with something small, a new routine, a new goal, a new sense of direction. You start sleeping better, walking with more purpose, thinking more clearly. Your energy becomes lighter, and for the first time in a long time, your future doesn't look like something you're trying to escape, it looks like something you're finally ready to build. Then the momentum starts. Real momentum. Opportunities show up that you once overlooked. You start saying yes to things you used to avoid. Your circle changes. Your habits evolve. Your discipline returns. And suddenly, life begins moving at a speed she never expected. This is when she feels the shift not because you announce it, but because your absence becomes active, not empty. Your improvement doesn't whisper anymore, it echoes. The friends who once asked about her now ask about your success. The people who once saw you broken now see you rising. The world that once revolved around her memory now revolves around your purpose. And here's the part she never prepared for. She expected you to stand still. She didn't expect you to outgrow the place where she left you. Women always imagine they're walking away from a man who will be waiting in the same emotional spot months later. But when she looks back, whether through social media, mutual friends, or pure intuition, and she sees you evolving faster than she can process, it hits her differently. Not like jealousy, not like rage, like fear. Fear that she misjudged your potential. Fear that she walked away right before your breakthrough. Fear that you're becoming the version of yourself she always hoped for, but someone else will now receive. Because nothing bruises a woman's ego like watching a man become everything she didn't believe he could be when she had him. You're not posting sad quotes anymore. You're not chasing anymore. You're not frozen in place anymore. You're moving, growing, expanding, and most importantly, you're doing it without her. This chapter in your story marks the moment you move from trying to impress to becoming unforgettable.
Point 6. When you no longer need the ending to make sense. There is a turning point in every man's healing journey. A moment so quiet, so unexpected, you almost miss it when it arrives. It's the moment you stop needing the ending to make sense. See, most men spend months, sometimes years, rewinding the story in their minds, trying to understand why she changed, why she gave up, why she pulled away, why she stopped choosing the relationship you kept fighting for. You look for clues in old messages, in old memories, in the last conversation that felt unfinished. You replay things you said, things you should have said, things you wish you could take back. You chase closure like it's the final key to your peace. But here's the truth every man learns the hard way. Closure doesn't come from her. It comes from you finally accepting that her behavior was the closure. And one day, somewhere in the middle of all those overthought nights and over-explained emotions, something shifts inside you. Not dramatically, not with a big realization, not with a tearful moment.
It hits you gently, almost like a breeze brushing past your chest. I don't need answers anymore. And that sentence, that tiny flicker of acceptance, is the moment you finally let go of the story you've been trying to rewrite in your head. You stop trying to make sense of her silence. You stop trying to decode her mixed signals. You stop trying to understand why she treated you like an option after you treated her like a priority. And instead of searching for reasons, you start searching for peace. This is where real healing begins. Quietly, internally, honestly. Because when you no longer need her explanation, you're no longer emotionally attached to her version of the truth. You're finally free to build your own. She, on the other hand, expected you to stay stuck in confusion. She expected you to keep replaying the ending. She expected you to need her validation, her apology, her reasoning, something to justify the pain she caused. But when she sees that you've stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped searching for clarity, it rattles her. Because your desire for closure was the proof she thought she had power. It was the sign she believed showed you still cared, still hoped, still held on. But now, you're not waiting for her truth. You're building your own. You're not holding on to the ending. You're rewriting the next chapter. You're not trying to understand her. You're understanding yourself. This is the moment she starts realizing what she took for granted. A man who doesn't seek closure has already found himself, and men who find themselves don't circle back to what broke them. This is when the questions begin in her mind, the ones she never thought she'd ask. Did he finally see who I really was? Why doesn't he need answers anymore? Why does he seem okay? Is he happier without me? Did I lose the man who loved me the most because I didn't know how to love him back? You don't hear these questions. You don't see the confusion. You don't witness the regret. But trust me, she feels every inch of the shift. Because nothing crushes a woman's ego more than realizing the man she left behind no longer needs anything from her, not even closure. This chapter is the end of the old story and the beginning of the new one. Because when you stop chasing explanations, you start chasing purpose. And once you reach this stage, you don't go backwards. You don't reopen old wounds. You don't negotiate your worth. You don't need the ending to make sense because you finally understand the truth. The relationship ended the moment you started losing yourself. The healing began the moment you stopped trying to understand why. Point 7. When you give your heart a new home. There comes a moment, the most important moment of all, where everything inside you shifts for the final time. And it doesn't happen when she leaves. It doesn't happen when she ignores you. It doesn't happen when her attention fades. It happens much later, in the quiet, when you finally give your heart a new home. Let me take you into that moment, because it's not what most men expect. You're going through your day, maybe working, maybe walking, maybe cleaning your room, and suddenly you notice something. You haven't thought about her in hours. Not in anger, not in longing, not in sadness, not in hope. Just nothing. Your mind feels spacious. Your chest feels lighter. Your energy feels uncluttered. It's as if your heart finally walked out of the burning building it kept trying to survive in. You didn't force it. You didn't try to distract yourself. You didn't fake move on. It happened naturally because you started pouring your emotional energy into something new. Maybe it was a passion you rediscovered. Maybe it was your purpose waking up inside you. Maybe it was new dreams, new people, new routines. Or maybe you finally started loving yourself with the same intensity you once loved her. This is where the real shift happens, because your heart doesn't heal when you stop loving her. Your heart heals when you start loving your life again.
And that's the moment she feels. Oh, she feels it more than any silence, any distance, any no contact rule on earth. A woman can sense when a man's emotional door closes, not because he slammed it, but because he quietly locked it and walked towards something better. Your conversations change, your priorities change, your tone changes, your presence changes. You're calmer, more focused, more grounded, more yourself. She can sense that she no longer lives in your thoughts rent-free. She can sense that her memory is no longer the center of your decisions. She can sense that you're no longer waiting for her validation, her apology, her reasoning, something to justify the pain she caused. But when she sees that you're stopped asking, stopped waiting, stopped searching for clarity, it rattles her. Because your desire for closure was the proof she thought she had power. It was the sign she believed showed you still cared, still hoped, still held on. But now, you're not waiting for her truth. You're building your own. You're not holding on to the ending. You're rewriting the next chapter. You're not trying to understand her. You're understanding yourself. This is the moment she starts realizing what she took for granted. A man who doesn't seek closure has already found himself. And men who find themselves don't circle back to what broke them. This is when the questions begin in her mind, the ones he never thought she'd ask. Did he finally see who I really was? Why doesn't he need answers anymore? Why does he seem okay? Is he happier without me? Did I lose the man who loved me the most because I didn't know how to love him back? You don't hear these questions. You don't see the confusion. You don't witness the regret. But trust me, she feels every inch of the shift. Because nothing crushes a woman's ego more than realizing the man she left behind no longer needs anything from her, not even closure. This chapter is the end of the old story and the beginning of the new one. Because when you give your heart a new home, you don't just heal, you evolve. You rise. And every woman who ever doubted you eventually feels the weight of that rise.
Listen to me. Your goal was never to break her. Your goal was to break the version of yourself that settled, the version that chased, the version that tolerated disrespect, the version that forgot his own worth. When you rise, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the regret she feels is just a side effect. The real victory is this. You didn't get her back. You got yourself back. And once a man returns to himself, every woman who underestimated him eventually feels the loss. Always remember, you are the prize. Choose yourself first.